This is Vicki Paris Goodman, author of To Sam with Love, a surviving spouse's story of inspired grief, and speed bumps and other impediments to life in the fast lane. And if you really want to learn how to level up your life, you should be listening to the Time to Shine Today podcast with my good friend Scott Ferguson. Let's level up.
Time to Shine Today podcast Varsity Squad. It is Scott Ferguson again, and I have a fantastic author that I had just an amazing interview with. Another Type A personality, my good friend Vicki Paris Goodman, and she authored a book called To Sam with Love: A Surviving Spouse's Story of Inspired Grief. And just hearing how she talks about Sam and the decent person that he is, and also how that we have our own cultural conditioning about grief and how that we can move around that. The lessons in here are just amazing. And I did this interview literally on a day that I lost someone very, very close to me, and which will help with me work through this grief in my next couple of weeks to come, or more than that, but just kind of work through it. So I know that you will find value in this. Again, it's a little bit off track from what I usually interview. So I guess you can just kind of call it a breath of fresh air. So you might want to break out your notebooks, because if anybody that might be kind of going through grief or dealing with a loss, that might be some really good knowledge nuggets here to pass on to them. So without further ado, here's my really good friend, Vicki Paris Goodman. Let's level up. Time to Shine Today podcast Varsity Squad. This is Scott Ferguson, and I just had a really fun off-camera, off-mic conversation getting to know my new good friend, Vicki Paris Goodman. And she is the author of To Sam with Love, a surviving spouse's story of inspired grief, which, hang around to the end. There's some serious life-building knowledge nuggets in this book, and I'm going to do a two-book giveaway. And my friend Vicki kind of grew up around the kind of the Hollywood hotbed. So I'm sure she has some really good stories that we might get to, we might not. But she's also a retired mechanical engineer. She sings and plays violin semi-professionally. And for over 20 years, she served a Long Beach, California area newspaper as a theater critic. She is currently writing her second book, Speed Bumps and Other Impediments to Life in the Fast Lane, a slightly self-deprecating treatise, I'm going to butcher that word, on the trials of a life of a Type A personality. And this is going to be a fun conversation, because it's a little bit different squad than what I do with kind of bringing on coaches, therapists, entrepreneurs. And so it's kind of like, I guess you might call it a breath of fresh air out there. So Vicki, thank you so much for coming on. Please introduce yourself to the Time to Shine Today podcast Varsity Squad. But first, what's your favorite color and why?
Green.
Green, and why?
Apple green, I just think is the most beautiful color. I just find I'm drawn to it, no particular reason.
The granny apple greens, that one?
Yeah,
Those, and they're good,
exactly.
and they're good in pies. But no,
They
green
are.
is
They're
like
tart.
rebirth. And what I feel that you might have been going through a little bit through your writings and stuff, and that I've read, is kind of like a rebirth, and green is kind of like springy rebirth in what you've kind of put out there with the lessons.
My favorite color has been green since childhood,
That's
so
excellent.
it
Well, it
hasn't
fits right
changed.
along with our message, though, which is fantastic. So let's get a little bit kind of to your roots, kind of growing up, and again, kind of living close to that Hollywood lifestyle, and like any of that kind of like push you in a way here or there. And then we're going to really, really, really dig into the book.
It really didn't push me anywhere that I'm aware of, and I'm pretty self-aware. But we had actors who lived in our neighborhood, a couple of them, and there was one in my high school class. We had Barry Livingston, who played. This is going way
Yeah,
back to a show called My Three Sons,
right.
which a lot of your audience will say, "What?"
But
But yeah, there were two brothers on that show, Barry and Stanley Livingston, and Barry played Ernie, and he was in my class.
oh wow, were you kind of friendly with him, or
No, he was very shy, believe it or
isn't
not.
that
He
crazy?
hung out with there was one girl who he befriended. Her name was Shelley, and they went to the prom together, but they were
Okay,
just friends. And
right.
he was so shy. He wore glasses and he had hair that covered up most of his face, and not what you would expect
And it's
of a
crazy because
child actor.
I'm blessed to coach an actress that she's been on the cover of People magazine 12 or 6 times. And it's so funny that if you saw her on the screen, you'd be like, she's the most boisterous, but they're really, she's not an introvert, but she's really to herself. And even with me, who she opens up to, which is just kind of different than what you see. Everyone expects to meet somebody like they see on screen and stuff like that, right? But it's not that,
Exactly.
right? So
Yeah.
let's get to some stories a little bit maybe about Sam, okay, that really stand out to you, some really good memories, maybe some challenges you guys have went through, but also what precipitated the writing of this fantastic book.
Yeah, Sam was a wonderful man. He really was. Everybody loved him. And I think the word is decency. There was a decency about Sam. And he was a very funny man. He loved the old style radio comedy. He was born in the mid 1940s.
Okay.
And yeah, and so he used to, as a kid, listen to radio comedy, Jack Benny and all those
Yes.
people. And he came up with some of his own one-liners, but he used a lot of the one-liners from Jack Benny and the Honeymooners. And again, we're getting way back
Oh,
to what your audience probably can't relate to
sure.
because, yeah, but these were these old time. And he over and over again without missing a beat, would come up with these one-liners in everyday conversation. And it was always perfectly timed. His delivery was great. I find I kind of channel that now. I didn't when he was alive, but
Hmm.
now when I hear something in conversation that would have precipitated one of Sam's one-liners, it comes right out of
You let it
me with
rip?
perfect timing. Huh? What was
You just
that?
let it rip, huh?
I
That,
know.
that's excellent. That's
With
beautiful.
great delivery, which is not me. So I'm thinking he's channeling this through me. So it's kind of funny. But
Is there one of those personal one-liners that really stands out to you that you can just rattle off?
well, he did this Jack Benny thing,
Okay.
like, well,
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember that. Thing is, he's born right around the time my dad is, so my dad still. I showed him how to find on YouTube some old radio comedies in stories and stuff like that from that are taken back from the archives, and he loves it now. So I can kind of relate a little bit with that. So
yeah.
yeah, but please keep going a little bit about Sam.
Yeah, so he was funny and he was decent, and above all, he believed in doing the right thing in every situation. And if you think about it, doing the right thing in every situation is sometimes hard. Sometimes you have to sacrifice a lot to do the right thing. And I never, in 22 years of marriage, I never saw Sam waver off of doing the right thing. So don't ask me for an example,
No,
Scott,
you're
because
fine, love.
I can't think of it, but it happened over and over again. Well, I can think of an example actually.
Okay,
Like for example, how when you're meeting another couple in a restaurant and if you're there first, you probably take the side of the table that has the view or whatever.
sure.
Sam would do just the opposite.
Hmm,
He would say, "Let's sit over here so that they can see out the window when they come."
love it.
He was just like that.
Yeah.
So he was a really good person and a wonderful husband. And the ways in which we kind of got into it for the course of our marriage and sometimes argued was I'm a type A personality. In fact, my book Speed Bumps is all about life as a type A personality.
Hmm.
And that's why it's self-deprecating because I think as type A's we sort of are ashamed of some of our impatient behavior
100%.
and such.
Me, I'm
Yeah.
raising my hand first in line. Absolutely.
Me
Yeah.
too. I'm
Yeah.
raising my hand. Yeah. So Sam would say, maybe I'd be on the phone with some company with their customer service and I'd be extremely frustrated over some problem. And when I got off the phone, he'd say, Sweetie, you can't talk to people like that. And I'd snarkily say in my frustration, I just did. And he'd say, Sweetie, you can't talk to people like that. And it just,
It,
it had no effect.
how many years were you married?
Almost 22.
Wow. That's
Yeah, when he
terrific.
passed, we got married kind of late
Yeah,
in life. He was
sure.
almost 50 and I was, I don't know, 42, I guess.
Okay.
And yeah, but we had 22 years together before he passed at age 72 from cancer in 2019.
Right. So and this kind of get into the book a little bit, like kind of like there's kind of traditional ways to mourn, right? That you hear. And from what I get from the book is there's you've kind of like, for lack of a better term, kind of flipped the script on the
Yeah.
traditional ways of mourning, right? So the challenges and expectations of grief. Can you kind of give me the moment you realize that your journey might be a little bit different from what you've been told to expect? You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people have been through what you're going through, what we're about to go through in 2019, right? What is different that you've really found through your journey that was different than what people might have told you to expect from this grief?
It started on the day Sam passed. I was suddenly flooded with optimism. Now I've lost the love of my life a
Yeah.
few hours before, and suddenly I feel like there's this helping hand coming from somewhere to guide me in a direction that I may not have gone on my own. And
Wow.
spiritual experiences like that were not a part of my life before that. I was raised very secular. And I'd begun to believe in a higher power only because it didn't make sense to me any longer that all that we see and experience around us could have just happened on its own.
Sure.
But I hadn't taken that belief very far. And after Sam passed, so this helping hand is coming on the day he passes. I'm flooded with optimism. I'm saying, what's going on? This is unseemly. And my first instinct was to push it away. But then I thought, I was so strong during our 2 year ordeal from diagnosis to Sam's eventual passing. And he did really well for at least a year and a half.
Mm.
I was so strong during that time, and I took such good care of him at the end when he needed taking care of. And I'm not the caregiver type that I thought if good things want to come my way, I know it's kind of funny. I'm not the
It's
caregiver
okay.
type, but I thought if good things want to come my way, even on the day Sam passed, maybe I should let them. And it turned out to be the best decision I could have made. So so what had started to happen then was insights began to come my way, things that
Mhm.
didn't seem to come from me, especially given how frequent they were, and opportunities to do things that I might not have thought to do. And I embraced them, and they all turned out perfectly. It was really sort of a divinely inspired experience. Why me? If these
Right.
things were available to me, they must be available to others. What's interesting about the book is
Mm.
it's more my very uplifting experience of of all of what I've been describing and much more.
Right.
The insights, most of the best ones, the most powerful ones, came after I published the book. So they're in 3 audio episodes that I have online that I make available for
Mhm.
free. So it's sort of a toolkit, if you will, the book to show people how to move on quickly while they're still missing this person who was so important to them and grieving the
Right.
loss. And then the audio episodes that give you the insights that make the loss not terrible.
And yeah. And your is it your voice, right? I'm gonna say it's your voice in
It,
the audio, so they can actually put a personality to in the field to that. And let me ask you something. Was there a particular kind of experience or something that you and Sam might have had, or a sign from Sam, for a lack of a better term, that made you feel guided in this journey? And the reason why I'm asking this, because you mentioned before that he was a funny guy, right? I mean, he's just like had that. In the minute like you said, I believe you said quoted, you were flooded with optimism, right? And that sounds to me kind of like Sam, what he would have been, not if you were to have passed, but like he was just a person that might have been flooded with optimism. So is there something that made you feel guided in this grief journey from Sam?
well, I didn't know at the time whether it was Sam or God.
Okay.
I was considering the possibility of both, and to this day, I still don't know, and it's been 5.5 years.
Right.
Yeah, but that helping hand that I felt so strongly, which was really the first spiritual experience that I'm aware of in my entire life. So this was not a usual thing for me, and it was guiding me. And I
Right.
chose to let it lead me. And it's actually something I would recommend to others who lose someone. If you feel you're being guided, maybe embrace that and let yourself be led. I'm kind of a control freak, being a type A,
Yeah.
and I don't let myself be led too often.
Right.
So this was also very different. Something or someone was telling me, drop the control, let yourself be led.
Wow.
Very different for my experience.
Right. It's because you guys are together 22 years or around that amount of time. It's like some of that kind of rubs off on you in a sense. Like it just like it's almost like you're living like I found it out with my mother, who I lost in 2019 as well. It's just this kind of like a part of me that suppressed anything from my mother. But when she passed, I almost acted out some of the things that I learned from her in a sense through time. And I'll see myself saying things or doing things that I never really kind of did before her passing. So it's just funny. It's not funny, but it's kind of crazy how they, when that loss will activate different, sometimes physiological things that happen to you, your mannerisms and stuff like that that you never had before. It's almost
Well,
like
that's
a
the thing.
ghost. Yeah,
But not only was I channeling Sam's humor all of a
that's the word,
sudden,
channeling, right?
yeah, but how I described how impatient I could be sometimes, like the story I told about being on the phone with the customer service representative. So Sam was always trying to get me to be more patient
Mm,
and to stop reacting so
ooh, I like it.
aggressively to certain triggers.
Right.
I couldn't do it while he was still alive. But boy, have I been able to tame that since he passed.
Sure.
It's very interesting. And I think part of it might be that I want him to be proud of me.
Yep.
And yeah, I always wanted him to be proud of me, but after he passed, somehow that took on more importance. I'm not sure why, it just did.
Yeah. It's keeping them close to you. I'm not a therapist. I don't have any alphabet letters after I'm a coach, right? So I don't have that, but that's a way to keep that closeness intact. And I've noticed that kind of like feeling like your story is kind of one of almost like a transformation, right? So what do you think the biggest, how can I say this, misconception about grief that people hold on to? What do you think the biggest misconception about grief is?
Okay, this is probably the most powerful insight I received, and it came after I wrote the book. Is death tragic? I say no. I say it's a cause for celebration. Now, don't turn off the podcast. I'm going to
Okay.
explain this. Yeah, okay. If you have the belief system that there is a loving God and a beautiful, beyond words, stunning, exquisite afterlife, and most people I'm finding do have that belief system. And if you do, then what is exactly is tragic about your loved one going to that beautiful place to be with God, where they're surrounded by a love so powerful that we can't even comprehended here on earth,
Right.
where they know all of the knowledge of the universe because they're at one with God. And this is what I'm getting this from many near death experiences, one in particular, but many people who have had near death experiences describe this love that we can't experience here on earth because it's so powerful, and
Right.
this all-knowing knowledge of the universe.
Right.
So if that is the case, and if you believe that God has a plan for each one of us, then the plan was always for, in my case, Sam to pass before me, go to this beautiful place. I will join him there later. And in the meantime,
Mm.
God has a plan for me to do more things, experience more, learn more, and maybe even to teach others.
Yes.
What exactly is
Absolutely.
tragic about that? I say nothing. I say that the reason even people with this belief system who nod knowingly as I say these things still grieve hard in many cases. I think
Right.
it's cultural conditioning, and I think it's conditioning that needs to be undone.
Right.
Because even for entrepreneurs that experience these losses or adversity in life and are stuck and frozen, they can't afford that. Their productivity can't afford that. And showing I'm showing everyone a different way to look at loss and adversity and death itself.
So how can people maybe shift their perspective then to embrace this kind of role of inspired grief versus just kind of enduring it? Like what do you think that they could start at?
Okay. So, regardless of your belief system, what I tell people worked for me, and I think it can work for anyone, is to establish a balance after you lose someone very important to you. Establish a balance between what I call activity and quiet time. There are people who will tell you just keep yourself as busy as possible so you don't have time to think or feel.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, I've
That
heard that.
advice is well intended, but it's all wrong.
Hmm.
And I knew it instinctively as soon as people started telling me that, and only a couple did. What you need to do is you need to process what's happened to your life. The person who you shared your home with, let's say, if it's a spouse, is not going to be physically present in your home anymore.
Right.
And that is going to take some getting used to. As human beings, we fear the unknown and the uncertainty of how life is going to look after this loss,
Right.
or if it's adversity of any kind. And so we need to process that. That's the part that we really need to grieve.
Okay.
Not the fact that our loved one, let's say, went to this beautiful place. So it's kind of a bifurcated notion of the changes to our life and the actual fact of the person passing away. Okay? So what I did was these opportunities started coming my way to do things almost immediately, and I thought, is it too soon? And the helping hand told me, no,
Right.
do it.
Right.
So I did. I did some wonderful things. I traveled to some wonderful places. I acted in a play for the first time in my life after
Wow.
having been a critic for all those years. Yeah. Yeah. And I rejoined the orchestra I had been in that I quit when we got Sam's diagnosis. I just didn't feel like
Yeah,
playing at that point. So I didn't. And I rejoined immediately after Sam passed. And it was so good making
that's
those
beautiful.
musician friend
Yeah,
connections again. So the quiet time part of this is anything. It can be just sitting and being, or it can be reading, or it can be hiking or walking,
sure.
maybe even with a friend. It doesn't have to be alone time, but you need to get away from the activity that's going to kind of take you away from the processing of what has happened.
Love it. Yeah.
So yeah, create a balance. So
Yeah.
so the activities are the things that are going to start you moving into that next chapter of life. People think they have to put that off,
Right.
and that's part of the cultural conditioning.
Yeah. I
Oh, I
love that
have
you
to
use
wait.
those
It's
two
too
words.
soon.
Right.
No, it's
Yeah.
not too soon.
So do you think if Sam was sitting with us right now, which he might be, and nice to meet you, Sam. What do you think he would say about your journey and what you put on paper?
I believe Sam is cheering me on and saying, "Wow, you did this the best way possible, and I'm so happy you did. You
Right.
didn't waste any time. You have missed me, and I've tried to be there for you, and I have stories in the book about that."
Yep.
Yeah, and yeah, so I think he'd
I
be
think he'd
all
be
in favor
I
of
think he'd be
exactly what I did.
jumping up and down, right, a rock. I mean, just from what you explained to us earlier in our interview here, that he would be really on board. I mean, fully on board. So, have you seen the movie Back to the Future?
Yes.
Okay, it'll be 40 years old next week, right? So let's get in that DeLorean with Marty McFly. Let's go. We're going to move away from the book just a little bit right now. I want to know about Vicky just a little bit. So, if we were to go back to the Double Deuce, the 22-year-old Vicky, what kind of knowledge nuggets would you drop on her? Not, and that's what we call them here, like things to uplift or advice that you'd give her, that not to change your journey, okay, but to maybe shorten a learning curve or maybe blast through just a little bit quicker.
This has a lot more to do with my new book, Speed Bumps, than it does with To Sam with Love, this question you just asked
Yeah.
me. Gosh, this type A drive and always having to get as quickly as possible to the
As far as you can, as
destination,
fast as you can, right?
as far as you can, as fast as you can, whether
Me
it be
here too, baby.
literally. Yeah, the road rage. I have a chapter in the book in Speed Bumps called Road Rage 101.
Okay.
I have largely conquered, well, I will always be a type A,
Me too. Yeah.
but well, the advice I would give her is try and maybe change jobs, even if this is what it takes, and work at a place where the frustrations are fewer and farther between. Because I would notice that with a high stress environment, being a type A, I would respond to all these instances of, oh, it's hard to put, these stressful instances where I was motivated to just keep up and go as fast as I could to keep up. And the frustrations of somebody who I just sent a fax to losing it and saying, "Can you fax it again?" And all these frustrations.
Right.
If I had a lesser stress environment, and if the stresses were not only less, but farther between, so that I had a chance to calm down before the next one hit.
Sure.
Instead, I always found myself in these situations where my volcano was sort of getting closer and closer to eruption, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
still
I
work
would
with that
tell
in my
her,
life too, honey. I like I have. That's why I've had my coach for 19 years, but she keeps me in check with that. Like,
yeah,
because I'll have it and the funny thing is with people like us is sometimes we might even search for something to set us off because if we're not set off or leaning into our what we feel is our ultimate human potential, right? That we almost search for stuff, which is not I learned very quickly it wasn't healthy. Meaning I'd find something like to challenge somebody or challenge myself or make a freaking mountain out of my own little molehill for a to go back on a cliche. You know what I'm saying? We do that.
yes,
We
I
do
do.
that.
I tell a story in Speed Bumps. In the chapter Road Rage 101, I tell a story about how it happened. It actually happened one time that I had everything done. And that
You didn't know how to deal
that
with having
was
everything
that
done.
was and I thought, wow, what do I do with myself? I decided to go take a walk in a nature on a nature trail not too far from the house in Long Beach. And I'm still road raging to get there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was so hard to just drop
Right.
the usual mentality.
Right. I was told, what my coach and actually someone else that I immensely respect is that silence is God's voice, right? Because there's there. Like if you really tune into that. So I'm required to take a daily sabbatical, even if it's for 10 minutes, to where it's just like me and my silence. I'm God-fearing. And I love to hear the story about Sam saying like he would give somebody the view. Like if you went to a restaurant, give someone a view. And that goes right back spirituality religiously to Proverbs 17, where it's like if you walk into someone's house, you sit not at the head of the table, you sit where it is. And if the host wants you to be moved there. And those kind of people are more well liked that do that. And that's why Sam was loved because he was a go-giver out there and which is just it's amazing. I would have loved to have like met this man in the flesh. And I'm sure a lot of people out there, right, squad would want to meet Sam as well. So how does Vicki want her dash remembered? That little line in between your own incarnation date and your expiration date, your life date and your death date. How does Vicki want her dash remembered?
Oh, wow. I want to be remembered as a nice person because I haven't always felt, when I look back on a way I behaved, I haven't always felt likable.
Yeah.
That's why Speed Bumps is a
You're my
little
sister from another
self-deprecating.
mister. I'll tell you that
Yeah,
right now because I get
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. I want to be remembered as a nice person.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I think that your people that know you, I know that people that know me know that everything that I do comes from my heart. But I also run a company and I have kind of a beta personality that, is just one rung below me, if you will, and he keeps me in check with the stuff. And I trust him. kind of like maybe what Sam did with you on certain things, right? Like,
I was just thinking that.
it's like someone will say that man's the head of the house, but the woman's the neck, and the neck turns the head, right? So it's like no matter what personalities are there. So, what is Vicky's definition of a life well lived?
See, this goes back to the type A thing. And is it really true? I would say, oh, I've accomplished all these things. Well, one of the things I've learned very recently is you don't have to be constantly achieving. And I've stopped to smell the roses. And so I think I've missed out on a lot being this type A
Sure.
go-getter because type A's don't stop to smell the roses.
Right.
And so now I think that a life well lived is one where you are constantly stopping to smell the roses.
Just being present, being right there. I'm
Yeah.
like coaching clients here in South Florida that I'm blessed to coach in person, or even if I travel, I put them in their car. One, I want to see how they keep their car. If it's messy, I can coach around that, meaning like mindset wise. So I'm just a mindset coach. But I showed them the rearview mirror and I was like, listen, this is small for a reason. That's your past. If you need help there, I don't have an alphabet after my name. I got to get you a therapist. But this windshield, huge, big, oh my gosh, where are we going? It can get scary. But ever since 2011, and now you can actually carry it in your pocket, a GPS system, right? And that's what I am as your coach. But you have to be present enough to buckle your seatbelt if you so choose to, start the car and plan. And that the only way you can do that is what you just said. You have to be here where you are, period, at that time. And as a type A's like us, we're like already there before we're even there. A lot of times we're missing out on a lot of shit that we could, excuse my language, that we could have saw on the way to that journey, right? And
Absolutely.
I'm so happy to hear you say that you are. We drop cliches all the time, slowing down to smell the roses, right? I mean, it's true. Ferris Bueller said it in his movie, Life Goes Fast. If you don't stop and look around, it just goes right by us, right? So that's awesome. Time to Shine Today podcast. Varsity Squad, we are back. And Vicki, I am in Arizona quite a bit. So one of these times we're going to have to meet for a good cup of coffee or something like that when I'm out
Oh,
there.
I'd
And
love it.
some of these questions I might ask, and we'll take 15, 20 minutes to bounce them off of each other. But today, you've got 5 seconds with no explanation. So I need you to turn on that alpha.
Oh,
And all of them, I promise you, can be answered quickly. You ready to level up?
yep.
Yeah, I know. I knew you were going to be like, yep. There was no hesitation, nothing. I love it. Vicki, do you feel is the best leveling up advice that Sam's ever given you?
Leveling up. I'm not even sure I know what that
Yeah, good
means.
advice.
Oh, you said they'd all be easy to answer. I'm not sure. Well, Sam didn't give me
He
advice.
never said slow down.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah,
we've been
we'll
through
leave it
that.
at that.
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
slow down. Yeah,
perfect.
develop some patience.
There you go.
Let's
Perfect.
go there. Yeah.
How about share me one of your personal habits that contributes to your success?
Oh, I never procrastinate. I
Love
remember
it.
I had a big problem with it when I was younger,
Love
but
it.
I never procrastinate now.
Beautiful. So you see me kind of walking down the street or we're somewhere and you're like, man, Fergie looks like he's in his doldrums a little bit. Is there any book that you read that really kind of flipped your mindset around upside down and really got you back on track?
Yes. Proof of Heaven by Eben Alexander.
Excellent. Donnie, put that in the show notes, please. Thank you. Your most commonly used emoji, if any, when you text.
Oh, the one where what is it called? The one where the eyes go up
Oh yeah.
like
Kind of
right.
like rolling your eyes kind of thing.
Yeah,
I love
rolling,
it.
that's it. Rolling
Love
eyes,
it.
yeah.
Nicknames growing up?
Oopsie and
Oopsie.
tomato.
Got it. Love it. Do you have any hidden talent and or superpowers that nobody knows about until now?
Yeah, I'm a spelling savant. I have a
That's
photographic memory for spelling.
I'm just going to send you texts now that are wrongly spelled. I'm kidding. I won't do that. Not...
Thank you very much, Scott.
I love it. Chess, checkers, or Monopoly?
Monopoly.
Gotcha. Headline for your life.
Type A crazy.
I love that you're transparent. This is awesome. Go-to ice cream flavor.
Oh, my favorite ice cream
Yep.
flavor? Coffee.
Love it. There's a sandwich called the Boopsie. Build that sandwich. What are we eating for a sandwich?
Oh, okay. Corned beef
Mm.
and Swiss cheese. I guess it would be more like a Reuben.
Reuben, love Reubens. We can do
Yeah.
Sarah's anytime. Love that. Favorite charity and or organization you like to give your time and or money to?
Maybe, gosh, what's it called now? I can't think of the name of it, but it's a bet. Oh,
What does it have to do with?
it has to do with legal assistance
Oh, cool.
for those who can't afford it.
Oh, nice. Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
We'll look, Daddy, look that up. Okay, cool. Please.
It
Uh,
starts with bet, BET.
But okay. Last question. You can elaborate on this one, but what is the best decade of music? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s?
60s.
Yeah, who's your go-to?
Oh gosh, I have so many, but maybe Frankie Valli and the Four
Oh my
Seasons.
gosh. One of my questions I sometimes ask, and this is no lie, I go ask people Beatles or the Stones? And they'll give me, and I always say, I got asked the question one time on a podcast, the Beatles or the Rolling Stones? I said Frankie Valli. And they're like, in the Four Seasons, and they're like, why? I'll go, because they had a hit before the Beatles, a number one before the Beatles, during the
Yeah,
Beatles, and way after the Beatles. And they're
yeah.
so under freaking rated, but he's still performing. I'm going to see him in 2 weeks. Frankie Valli. He's performing at 89 years old or something like that. And he's performing in South Florida. He performs every year in March, every year. And
I saw him a couple of years ago.
I mean, he doesn't do the full concert because he has this kind of like the what do they call those people that mimic him or whatever, and impersonators. They do it, but he'll come out and sing the slower songs, which is awesome. So thank you. That's awesome. I told you you're my sister from another mister. This is awesome. So how can we find your book?
Go to VickiParisGoodman.com. You can get the audio episodes there by subscribing at Inspired Grief. Just go to the menu and go to Inspired Grief, get the audio
This is
episodes.
Inspired Grief here, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah, but yeah, and
VickiParisGoodman.com would have the
would have the books and a link to Inspired Grief so that you can get to everywhere from VickiParisGoodman.com. And the books
beautiful.
are discounted on that location,
Okay.
a couple of bucks. So it might
Okay.
be the best place to buy them.
Excellent. And squad, I am going to do a 2 book giveaway for Sam's book and also a 2 book giveaway for Speed Bump. So all you have to do is put in any of our social. I don't care if it's Pinterest, LinkedIn. If you text it to 561-440-3830, if you put in Boopsie, you put in that, I'll know you've listened, and I will definitely you pick which book you would like, Speed Bumps or the Speed Bump book or the Sam book. And or if you want both, I have no problem buying both of them for you, and I will get them mailed out to you on time to shine today's dime. Absolutely no problem at all. And if
Should
you
we
again,
spell Boopsie?
I'll know it because if people butcher it, it's fine. I'll know that they've listened this far. I promise you. But also go to Inspired Grief and make sure you subscribe as well because you don't want to miss anything that Miss Vicki is going to be bringing out. And it looks like she's on the social media with the Instagram and the Facebook as well. So if you could, Miss Vicki, leave us with one last knowledge nugget, maybe some advice that we can kind of take with us, internalize, and take action on.
Yeah, something I actually said earlier, but establish that
Activity and
if you
quiet
lose
time.
someone, establish that balance between activity
Yeah,
and quiet time. It really move right into that next chapter of life. Let
I,
yourself do it.
that is such amazing advice. And squad, I do have actually a few notes. Usually when I'm talking to somebody of a professional, I take notes to really level up my coaching game. But I did pull away like some really good knowledge nuggets from my friend Vicky about just learning about Sam. It felt like he's here. He's a wonderful man. Decency is the word she used for him. He believed in doing the right thing in every situation, and there takes sacrifice in that squad. It's about go giving, not go taking, go giving, yet being open to the reciprocation, which he was open to the love from Vicky, and so that's why really they kind of mashed and meshed. Lost love of a life, living in losing her love of her life, the tongue twister there, flooded her with optimism, and she felt almost in a sense, what I got is a little bit guilty about that. But the insights started coming her way, which provided a lot of opportunities out there for it. So again, death doesn't have to be tragic. It can be a celebration, what my good friend Vicki said. We're culturally conditioned to look at death as, oh my gosh, this sucks. Like literally 11:15 yesterday, I lost my third mom, someone that I absolutely miss. But I know that when I fly to Michigan after my trip out west, I'm going to celebrate her life. And I'm going to be the one there that's going to be talking about my Aunt Joyce and what she's did and really and carry the torch from the lessons that she taught me, just like my good friend Vicki is carrying the torch, even though she's an alpha, an A-type personality, carrying the torch of lessons that Sam might have taught her. She wants you to work in a work that is going to challenge you, right? Don't sell yourself short. If you feel like you're not, in the place where you are, but there's something more and you don't know how to get there, get your asking gear. Like there's people out there that will help you along the way. She will be remembered as somebody that was a nice person, someone that you could lean on that's going to not just give you what you want to hear. I think Vicki's going to tell you what she feels that you might need to hear in the minute, but she's going to do it from a place of love. And lastly, again, I'm going to reiterate what she said, establish a balance between activity and quiet time, especially when you're going through loss. And that's what my good friend Vicki did. And thank you so much for putting them in writing. I absolutely love your God. So you level up your health, you level up your wealth. Again, thank you so much for coming on, Miss Vicki. I can't wait to collaborate with something in the future.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Scott.
Chat soon. Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Time to Shine Today, proudly brought to you by Inlet Properties and Investments. If you are a business owner or professional who would like to be interviewed on the Time to Shine Today podcast, please visit timetoshinetoday.com/guest. If you'd like this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to our website. Also there you will see our recommended resources. We hope you will help support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have been listening to, it'd be great if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe while you're at it. I'm your host, Scott Ferguson, and until next time, let's level up. It's your time to shine.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.